Hi, I'm Dr. Josef Witt-Doerring. It's my pleasure to be joined today by Kilian. Kilian's from Switzerland, and today he's going to be talking to us about PSSD. It's a condition that he suffers from. He experiences significant emotional blunting and significant impairment in sexual functioning. Despite this, he's able to have a understanding relationship. And Kilian has kindly agreed to come on and talk to us about how his condition developed and the impact that it's had on his life. So, Kilian, thank you so much for joining us.
No worries. Pleasure to meet you. It's a bit ironical given the condition, but it's an honor and a pleasure to be able to share a few words with you guys and just maybe share my story and educate people on that topic before it's too late
Thank you.
for some.
Yeah. So, let's. I always think it's nice just to go chronologically. Tell us about your story. How did you end up taking antidepressants in the first place?
I will try to make it short, but a lot of
Yeah.
things have happened. Let's start with the start. So, when I was young, I was a very active young guy and no issues whatsoever. I was doing like competition, a tennis competition at a high level. So that was awesome for me in terms of a relationship with people and confidence. At
Mhm.
some point, I did have some issues with my body, so I had to stop from a day to another. And yeah, when I was younger, I did have an issue with sleeping. That came when I was 2 or 3 years old, so before any med taken and before anything. Um, 30 years old, I stopped tennis and then I just continue life. Um, what happened basically is since 2003, I'm suffering from physical pain in my body, which as of now, like 20 years later, we still don't know really why. So a lot of things have been tried, and meanwhile, the point is that I ended up, let's say, I couldn't work anymore because too much pain and too much symptoms in my body. So around, let's say, 2009, which is 20 years old, I did see a psychiatrist, and things didn't go really well, let's say. So he didn't really do the proper diagnosis in my case, and he began prescribing me benzodiazepine. So, as you
Wait, was
know,
this for pain, for pain, physical pain from a sports injury?
not really. Let's say that back in the at that time, the diagnosis wasn't really clear. Was kind of for him like a small depression without really
Mm-hmm.
anything in there. I did try the benzodiazepine, and as you know very well the topic, it's a very addictive drug.
Mm-hmm.
So I started with small doses, and then ended taking them up to 25 times the prescribed amount. And with time, I wasn't even seeing him, so he was just doing me the prescriptions online, like via email. So I took them during 2 years, and
Well, let me just interrupt. So, so were you depressed when you started taking them? Was that the reason?
so I mean, I was young. The thing is that I had a lot of pain in my body, so obviously a lot of difficulties to sleep,
Mm-hmm.
tension and pain 24/24. So at some point, obviously it puts you way down, but I wouldn't say
Yes.
it's the. I mean, depression is just the consequences of the problem, and
Mm-hmm.
without consider the fact that obviously you're young and you're going through a lot of changes and blah blah blah. I was feeling bad, definitely. Did it require benzodiazepine? I I couldn't say it's the case. Did it work? It did work during a few weeks. Awesome. It's a benzo is a muscle relaxant, and it has anxiety properties. In my case, it was more
Mm-hmm.
for the tension. So you get very addictive quickly to this molecule, and I ended up, let's say, not taking them to feel good, but take them to not feel bad, and I was stuck in, let's say, a vicious circle because it wasn't doing any effect. And in the mid long term, the thing is that it's worsening my sleeping issues, it's worsening my muscular tension, it's worsening my anxiety. So you're back to stage one, and especially you with a high dose that requires medical attention. You know?
Yeah, yeah. And so how did okay, so okay, so there's some an unhappiness because you're in chronic pain, it sounds like from sports injuries. And so you get put on a benzodiazepine, which maybe in the short run helps with some relaxation, but doesn't work in the long run. When did you end up moving from the benzo over to an antidepressant? What was the story behind that?
So this psychiatrist prescribed me benzodiazepine, there wasn't any follow up. So just a pill and no inner work, no CBT, nothing.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't working, and I was taking these pills, and I mean, no improvement. So when I quit my job, because when I was taking those benzos, I was working in a private American bank, and I
Mm-hmm.
was doing my job well, but physically, in terms of pain, I had to quit. And I was referred to someone else, another psychiatrist. And before doing anything with me, she did understand I was on high doses. So she told me before anything, we need to get rid of this problem. And I agreed to go to rehab in my city here for 1 month to be able to taper them and stop them. Um, so I spent 1 month successful withdrawal despite the symptoms. That's where, in fact, the hospital introduced me to other meds. Um, in this
Uh,
case, in this case, it was a antipsychotic like Seroquel. Um,
yep.
yeah, and I mean, I've taken 11 meds during those 10 years, but let's say a lot of trial and error. But I did have some antidepressants also that I started over there. And that's how we did the transition, if you can say.
Yep.
Um, so I was happy because I was off benzos, but at the same time, when you think about it, you just like giving up an addiction to translate to another one. So I think it was still a smart move, but I was really young and I didn't know better. I trusted medical field here, and I had a good experience. Let's say at the hospital, I had the opportunity to meet a lot of people who have issues with alcohol, with cocaine, heroin, and
Mm-hmm.
to some extent benzodiazepine. It did. It did. I did learn a lot from that. Uh,
Yeah.
I can say.
So your experience is a very common one. So many people that go to benzo detox end up getting put on a whole range of different medications to treat the withdrawal symptoms or potentially the underlying condition that originally resulted in the benzodiazepine prescription. And so it sounds like you go through that experience and you come out on some other medications, and including an antidepressant. Um, what was the antidepressant that you were on the longest after you were started on them following the detox?
So just before answering your question, before I forget, when I switched psychiatrist, she did make
Mm-hmm.
another diagnosis for me that ends up being maybe not totally wrong, but not totally correct. So she told me I had some generalized anxiety, and obviously I had
Okay.
some sleep issues, so and pain issues. So that's why they gave me antidepressants because obviously there's nothing. I mean, that's the weapons the psychiatrists have here and in the world.
Sure.
So
Mm-hmm.
that has its logic, let's say. To answer your question, the antidepressant I stayed the longer for was FXO. It's
Okay.
venlafaxine and Remeron. which is a mirtazapine. So
Hmm.
mirtazapine increases the serotonin and norepinephrine, and FXR the same. Yeah,
Okay.
if I'm not wrong.
And okay, so when you were on the Effexor and the metazapine, did you develop any sexual dysfunction while taking the meds?
So when I think about it now, I did have sexual dysfunctions, but they were positive ones. So I'm going to explain that because it's a bit
Sure.
strange to hear this. 2011, I started the meds. So I finished them in 2019. So I took a bunch of them. When I started those antidepressants, I noticed a change in my sexual activity or performance, let's say. Um, so I was able to last much longer than before, which I cannot complain.
Hmm.
But when I think about it now, it was the numbness I had that made me last so long. So in that sense, during all these years, it didn't really bother me. I didn't have any, I don't have the sensation, but all the rest was intact emotionally, and attractiveness and everything was working fine. Just the sensation was bad, but for me it was acceptable. So that was while I was on the med. I can say I didn't have any
Hmm.
issues or visible, noticeable issues.
That's very interesting. So bring it forward now, and tell us when did you first notice that you were developing PSSD?
So it's pretty precise. I would say first alert for me is 2017. So actually,
How long had you been on the meds for at that point?
6 years. Six
Okay.
years. Um, there was a lot of things that happened, but I wanted to stop antidepressants for several reasons. One being that it didn't really, let's say, match my belief anymore, in the sense that I didn't have the improvement on my symptoms, but also I love researching and reading articles and just improving my body and mind, self development, and I was really aware of the impact that can have the meds on all the organs of my body, including my brain.
Hmm.
And I was sure that a real fix, would require me a lot of efforts in terms of lifestyle change, what I eat, what I put in my body, the habits I have every day. Um, so I was more focused on this, and also at that time, I was already into fasting, which is something I find very interesting and that I like. So step by step, I discussed with my psychiatrist, and we did, let's say, a plan to stop. To answer fully your question, because I'm not there yet, 2017, I was on two meds only, and I was weaning off FXO. So starting dose was around 150 milligram, and in 2017, I was at 75 milligram for a long time. So I started, let's say, reducing, and when I arrived around, let's say, 20 milligrams, 14 milligrams, that's where trouble arrived. Because the big challenge is tapering. You've got those 150 milligram pills, you got 75, and then you got 37.5, and then you're just left on your
Yeah.
own. So I was spending a few hours every week just counting the pills into my caps, and removing them step by step, slowly. When I arrived at this very low dose, one day I did have an issue, like in a sex activity. So I went from someone who was performing very good, I can say, like maybe 30 minutes, 40 minutes, even more, um, to literally like 1 minute. So first time I arrived, I was like, okay, maybe I decreased a bit too fast. No big deal. I had a chat with my psychiatrist. She said, yeah, it's normal, you have some layers coming from the medication and you removing the layers. So basically the protection you have that makes you last longer, it's going. Oh, okay, no big deal.
Hey, just want to interrupt quickly and just say if you're enjoying the content that we're producing here, that you consider liking, subscribing, and commenting on the videos. These are the type of things that gets this video kind of pushed to broader audiences, and it can really help us.
Let me ask you this. So it sounds like for several years you had you were lasting longer, which was clearly a side effect of the medication, but not
Yeah.
really one that was a negative effect, at least how you were perceiving it at the time. And then you taper down to 20 and
A bit less,
you,
yeah.
I guess you start to have, I guess, what we would call premature ejaculation, where
Definitely.
it came on quickly. Now, was that faster than it was in the past? Because I know in the past you said it lengthened it. Were you getting back to normal, or was this much quicker than you were even
Pre-med.
before you, before you were medicated?
So I can still answer this question easily. Pre-med, I didn't have a massive experience. I was 19 years old, so I
Mm-hmm.
was not really young, but I don't have a massive experience. But it was still much shorter. I cannot say exactly what was our performance before, but it was not this.
Okay. Yeah.
Clearly.
All right. Okay. So please go on. Tell us what happened next.
Just forgot where we were at before.
You said that you were down to 20. You noticed that I guess rate of ejaculation was much faster, and you went and you talked to your psychiatrist.
Exactly. So I eventually went to a dose a bit higher, and then a bit higher, and then I came back to 75 milligrams. That I did this. I reacted quickly, maybe 4 or 5 days after this episode. Took 37, and then I think 1 or 2 weeks after, directly to 75, which is not really smart. But what I noticed is that despite being back at my normal dose, I was not having the same performance. So it was not a catastrophe. I was back to, let's say, 10 minutes, which is regular or normal, or depending on people, obviously. There are ways to improve your
Sure.
lasting time, whether chemically or mechanically or breathing. There are ways, clearly, but average people, let's say, it's not too bad. And I stayed on this during 2 years and no change. Like, it wasn't really good, but it wasn't catastrophic. But my baseline that was set by the antidepressants wasn't there anymore. I mean, I could feel it when I was engaging in this activity. Something was changed. And at that time, I did have a quick check on internet.
I was going to say something. I think when you said 10 minutes is pretty normal, I think that is pretty normal for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
And so how did you know that you weren't kind of back to normal? Like what about how that felt made you say there's something that doesn't feel quite right about this? Or maybe I'm assuming maybe it did feel normal, but you were more used to lasting longer because that was normal for you so many times for so many years before.
When I say normal, I mean my the experience itself was normal. Everything was normal. Just the lasted time was different. So it did affect a
Okay.
bit my way of proceeding, but still all good. Of
Mm-hmm.
course, this duration is set by the antidepressant, so I'm referring to my antidepressant baseline. Before, again, I wasn't lasting that longer, but I wasn't into that extreme, like, not talking about the 10 minutes, but when I came to 1 minute, this was definitely not normal, and I saw that it was really weird how it happened.
Yeah.
Not sure it's answering your question.
No, it's you said that it was different from what you'd been used to on the antidepressant. It was much shorter, but it sounds like everything else felt normal to you. It just wasn't as long, but everything seemed just to feel fine?
The explanation for me, it's never simple, but for me, it's not too complicated at that time, is that I went back to the antidepressant without waiting too much. So there was an effect that wasn't full blown. I just managed somehow to limit the damage. And that's why I think it was not that bad. And your question
Mm-hmm.
is really relevant because it's important to know if it's like really PSSD or if you're just coming back to your normal baseline that was pre-SSD, pre-SSI. Again, I think the answer is not that complicated, but it's still complex because years go by and you take meds and you evolve in terms of physics, in terms of confidence, in terms of many things. So it's not easy to pinpoint. Yeah, you know.
Okay. So walk us forward from there. So how does the story unfold?
So I love researching. I love spending hours on the internet for everything. It didn't take me too long to discover a PSSD forum. So basically, I was just checking what happens when you stop antidepressants because I was fully aware that sexual side effects during medication is very common. No big deal. And I did discover the PSSD forum, having people who have a lot of sexual issues remaining after withdrawal during years. So when I saw that, I didn't feel too concerned. I was literally seeing people saying that they do not feel emotions, they cannot cry, they cannot, uh, they cannot really have attractiveness and all that stuff. And in my head, I was like, okay, that's not my issue. The issue is that I'm coming too fast right now. So who has this condition?
Yeah.
I was fully disconnected because I was like, this is impossible. Like how I am like very emotional, very insensitive, very, let's say, sex oriented. Everything was working too good, I can say. So I was like, there's no way this is happening to me. So I did check that some people had these side effects, undiscovered PSSD, and then I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go back to my med. I'm gonna live my life, and at some point, I'm gonna withdraw again, and I don't care if I last 5 minutes or 10. Like the body is important. You gotta mature and take a decision. I will stop it proper, like with supervision and properly, and no big deal.
Okay. Well, you're here with me now, so tell me what happened with that plan.
Life is full of surprises, yeah. That plan. So to fast forward to 2019, I was already in the fasting community. It's something I research a lot and have a lot of people who are doing fasting for a lot of different reasons, whether it's juice fasting, water fasting, colon cleansing, lifestyle improvement, self-development. Just I was really into this, and I understood and that I had to make a change at some point, and it's not too late. And I did have an appointment with someone who is specialized in this field, and I was fully aware of how to proceed. But I did have this medication, so I wanted to be a bit like have some caution about that. So plan has been done, and I was ready to do a 40-day juice fasting. Initially 30 days, that turned out in the 40 days with the preparation, the fasting itself, and of course the refeeding process. Um, Regarding the meds, I did follow a plan to not have too much before starting the juice fast. Obviously, the tapping process, is that we don't really have good protocols. That's how it works. So 75, I ended up to 37, and I started the juice fast with 37 milligrams.
Okay. And so just to clarify, you decided to lower your dose because you were worried that you didn't need as high of a dose while you were juice fasting. Was that the the reason, or was there something else?
I did lower it the weeks or months of leading to the fast to not have too high dose, obviously, to not have too much effects, because I knew that the last dosage is the most difficult one, clearly, especially with
Okay.
FXR that has I think, if I'm not wrong, the short the shortest half life of the
It's pretty short.
antidepressants.
Yeah.
And I'm not
Hmm.
talking about mirtazapine is not a big deal, but there was another one on the list too. So I mean, I know what it's like to have brain zaps and to have like symptoms of withdrawal, because I've taken a lot of those meds, increasing doses, low in doses, change in meds. So the interactions and everything, I went through everything, so I knew, I know what it's like.
And did you? And so just so tell us now, what were you on at that time? Was it Effexor, mirtazapine, and was it Seroquel still, or was it
No,
a different medication? Yeah.
so from 2014, I was essentially on Remeron and FXR.
Yep.
Before that,
Okay.
I was on 9 other different meds, but not at the same time, obviously. So there was some Lyrica, which is a
Oh, that's okay.
pregabalin.
That's okay.
It's
Yeah.
an anti-epileptic that is used for pain issues. So I did try
Yeah.
those. I was on Zoloft. I was on
Oh, that's okay. I'm gonna interrupt just to stay on track. Okay, so did you lower the mirtazapine in the lead up to your 40-day juice fast as well, or did you just lower the Effexor?
I did lower them at 15 milligram mirtazapine, which is the lowest dose.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. To answer your question on the meds,
Okay.
because I have a list here, I like to be prepared. What I
Oh,
took
yeah.
from 2011 to 14, and again, not at the same time. I mean, my psychiatrist, uh, I can say, despite everything, that she still knows what she does. I mean, she's not prescribing anything at any time. But I did go through a lot because we don't have any improvement in terms of either anxiety, either sleep issues, either pain, and sometimes symptoms to deal with, side effects. So, like, let's say that finding the right dosage when you're on more than 2 meds is a real big challenge. When you're at 3 meds, you just don't know what you're doing. So it's not easy to assess, and
No,
there's a lot
no,
going on
not
in
at all.
life.
But let me interrupt you. Let's move back to the juice fast now. So, tell us what happened during your 40-day juice fast.
So my juice fast went very well. I followed the plan accordingly, and I didn't have. I managed to stop medication without any withdrawal effect, zero. Like no brain sap, nothing. This
Oh,
from
sorry. I think I've misunderstood. Did you do the juice fast to taper while you were fasting, like to end?
exactly, yeah.
Oh my god. Okay, I missed that. All right.
Sorry about
Um,
that if I wasn't clear.
yeah, yeah. No, no. So you were preparing to do this juice fast because you wanted to taper off all medications during the fast, right?
That was one of my motivation, not only, but it was
Okay.
let's say the easiest way to taper off the end.
Why? Why? Why is that the easiest way to finish a taper? It's not something I'm aware of. Is this something in the community that has been successful for people, or give me some
So
context on where that came from?
obviously, fasting is another whole topic, but I will try to answer your question.
The
There has
two
been
minute the 2 minute version. Yeah, yeah,
there has been
yeah.
so the one who was guiding me is someone called Tyler Tolman. He's very well known in Australia, and he did have a lot of patients. I mean, he assisted in people during fasting, more than 10,000 people or more. So he does have some kind of experience with all kinds of issues. The list is long, but what we what he tells and what fasting science says is that during fasting, your body is much more efficient in detoxing everything because you're not eating. And when you're not eating, you say maybe about 60, 70% of your energy were directing in your regeneration and into autophagy, into stem cell regeneration, and you increasing your BNDF, you increasing what else do you have? There's a lot of things going on. So
Okay.
honestly, I had the opportunity to experience that, and when I lowered the last dose, I didn't. I did it in two parts. The first part, I didn't feel anything, and the second part, I didn't feel any withdrawal effect. But because there's
Here
a
we go.
but,
Yeah.
and this
Yeah.
is when I say but, I'm not saying that fasting is the issue. I don't think it's at all the issue. But when I tapped the last bit, the very very last bit, that was just a few days. Let's say at day 25 or day 20, day 30, 35, something like that. I noticed a switch, like flagrant switch. So I at that time had a lot of, I can say, anxiety. Yes. Was it due to the fact that I had the impression that I have always had a lot of tension and my heart pumping a lot? I cannot say it's the antidepressants' fault, but the question remains. But from a day or a minute to another, like I wasn't feeling anything, and during a few hours, I was like, "This is cool." And then I had my girlfriend at the time writing me. She was living abroad, and when she sent me a message, like I didn't have anything happening in my brain. I didn't even want to read the message. I was so disconnected, and starting from there, I was like, "There's something that's not normal." And then, with time, I said, "Let's wait 3 months, a bit 6 months." Like we know that during fasting, sexuality is definitely no priority. I'm not talking about emotions, but sex drive and all that stuff, which is normal. But usually after, it comes back really, really strong. So yeah, it's a bit long what I'm saying, but we can develop after.
No, no. I mean, this is the import. This is. I actually think it is a place we should spend more time. Is the first few weeks to months when you started realizing things were abnormal. You know, things had changed. To just kind of unpack what that was like for you. You know, how you started to notice bit by bit that there were more things wrong.
It was really fast. I mean, really easy to spot everything. I mean, in a few days, I know something was wrong. I just didn't know if it was going to come back or it was temporarily. So I was focusing on refeeding and just doing the process and giving me some time and not thinking too much about it. But something was off. And
And
I
when you say
was,
something was off, was it mainly the emotional blunting, or were there other things that you were noticing?
it was the emotional blunting, but the fact of like my heart was really calm. Like it wasn't pumping anymore. It was like so chill. Like if I had like a high dose benzo, like 24, 24. And it's
Mm-hmm.
very a nice feeling, but it's not supposed to stay. So I eventually I was confronted to reality very quick because we talking about I finished my fasting August 2019. In September, I was going to the Philippines, where I went already 3 times. I had my girlfriend over there. It's a country I love. I love the culture. I love the islands, the sun, the foods. I love my girlfriend. So I mean, I was going to a place that is really a good place for me, supposedly. And
Mm-hmm.
before going to Philippines, I was already feeling that I wasn't reacting to everything, to anything, like to music, and my fear was off. So I did something that I usually wouldn't do. I booked for a bungee jump in Switzerland.
Hmm.
So 190 meters from a suspended bridge. This is not really something I like doing. Now,
Yeah.
I'm not into that. Like, I
Yeah.
hate that. But I had to try something to see if I'm responding. So I
Oh
said,
my
yeah,
God. Yeah.
I'm gonna do this. So I'm driving 3 hours over there, and it was pretty almost comic because we were 10 person waiting to go, and nobody wanted to go first. So the guy's like, "Who's coming first?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'll try." And he says, "Three, two, one." I'm just jumping. Like I had a friend that was next to me, and he told me, "I have the impression you were jumping like you were going to the toilet, taking a piss."
Wow.
And
Yeah.
that's how I jump into the because it was pretty scary a scary place, and I just jumped like that, and I hurt myself, but that's another story. But I didn't usually I know my body and my brain leading to the jump. Normally 3 days before I would be thinking about it. I would have some kind of pressure building up to the day I jump. The hours before would become very intense, stress, anxiety, difficult to sleep, like excitation. And in this case, it's just 2 minutes before jumping that I'm building up some pressure. And when I finished the jump, I noticed I didn't have this post adrenaline or dopamine or this feeling of that's crazy, you know. I didn't really have any feeling when I jumped. I did feel my heart doing the pump like that, just one, but it was more mechanical than chemical. I can't say I didn't feel anything, but I mean I didn't feel a
Mhm.
lot, and this is not normal because being
Was it was it scary when you were doing it?
so it's very short, but the only moment I was maybe scared is when I took the jump. But when I was like in the air, I can't say it was gone, but I didn't have really the effect I should have. Like I'm pretty sure of
Wow.
it. And I was telling my friend,
Mhm.
there's a difference between being a man and I mean, for me, being a man is not doing these crazy activities. For me, it's just like um, having some fears and overcoming them. This is being a man for me. It's not like no having fears. It's having some and doing something. So
Yeah.
first episode. That's not the
Interesting.
last one, but
Yeah, tell me more. What other things that what were other experiences that were distinctly different for you um,
this.
now that the PSSD had developed?
So if we stay in the same timeline, this leads me to my stay in Philippines. One
Hmm.
month after I'm going to the Philippines, I was already honestly in a bad shape before going over there because I was just realizing that I lost connection with my partner. I didn't have any real motivation to talk. I didn't have any sensation when she was, let's say, telling me nice things, calling me. When I wake up in the morning, I would usually check my phone and read the messages, and this would make my day. And all of this was erased. And there was also a lot of like a brainstorm, like it was like a storm of emotions in the sense that following the discontinuation, I think he did such a I don't know what's the word, like a hack, or how could we say that? Like a storm of chemical
Hmm.
storm, I would say. It didn't make much sense, but there was something really bad, and it was really difficult to the first year to face it. And when I arrived into the Philippines, I it was the I think the worst period of my life. I did 3 months over there. It was very long. I spent the majority of the time in my room, hotel room, just doing nothing, just going out to buy some food when I had the motivation. Um, my partner was busy with work, but when I saw her, like I didn't have this physical connection, attraction, even emotionally. Like there was there was a gap, there was something wrong, and I always have been someone very, very emotional, very empathic, very sensitive. Um, so that was really a 360, and this was really hard to go through because just realized that's obviously something we all wait in, like having a relationship and having a good time and building something and projecting oneself. And I quickly understood that that's not even like something I can think about. Like this is game over, game over.
Was it when you were in the Philippines? Was that when it finally hit you that you had developed PSSD?
No, I knew it way before, but I was trying not to think too much about it. Um, Psychiatrist was telling me that, yeah, wait a few months and all that stuff, and I was trying to convince myself that eventually it would go away. From my side, I was pretty sure I had PSSD, but I mean, I was open and let's see what happens. But definitely, what I was going through was like, I don't know the word, like horrific or life changing.
Mm-hmm.
Like like being alone, it was very difficult, and I couldn't focus on anything. It's like I had like a cloud with storms the whole day above my head, and I
Yeah.
still those first months I still could cry, which I can't now. So everything was like very low and high at the same time. It was out of whack. That was the expression.
Okay. Now, you've talked a lot about the cognitive components of PSSD, which I've covered a lot in people on this channel before. You know, the extreme blunting, the
Mm-hmm.
disconnection, feeling like you're watching the world through a TV rather than actually being in the world. But we haven't talked a lot about your actual sexual functioning after after the fast. Could you share um, what you notice sexually after that?
What I noticed, and what I still notice to that day, 4 years later. Um,
Please.
of course, so there's 8 symptoms. I'm gonna go through them. It's gonna be a bit graphic, but I mean that's a reality, and that's why we're here for. People need to hear this. First one, the most flagrant one, is the loss of sensation down there. So what we would call genital anesthesia. So basically, I can still feel tactile sensation, but nothing erogenous. So it's like those rubber bands you have and you use to erase something. It's the same texture. And
Mm-hmm.
honestly, I think you could like I would have more sensation if you touch my arm than down there. That was the first one. This one, I can't say it's. I mean, it has definitely. It's worse than when I was taking antidepressants. I did have some kind of numbness. That's why I was lasting so long. This was a level above, but if it were only this, why not? But there's a lot of different symptoms following up, so I have my list, but I do know them. Second one, I would say it's the libido. Like I was someone with a very, very high libido, and from a day to another, even having my girlfriend in front of me over there, good looking, I mean, everything, have the apartment, I mean, the country, everything I like, just no attraction and no libido. So you have to force yourself to perform and to try to do the act, which is a bit frustrating. That's the
Yeah.
second one. The third one, it's a bit different than libido. I would say it's the lust. So during the activity, there's nothing making you really excited, whether before during, and the experience is totally changed because you're normally guided by your emotions, and that's how you do your thing during the act. But when it's purely mechanic and you have to put your emotions aside, your way of doing it is totally different, and it's difficult to stay motivated to do it when you don't have all those chemicals like that are not working or doing their job. So this is one. Another one is the erectile dysfunction. When I say erectile dysfunction, I'm not talking about like 5% less and it's working. And it's a big struggle to have an erection, and when you have it, to maintain it in terms of length and time. I wouldn't say it's dead either. It's still working somehow, but it's totally different. And something that is different too is I don't have the spontaneous erections I had maybe during the day or the night. All of this doesn't come neither. And you know, you have the glands inside. When your penis has the erection, basically it seems hard, but inside it's soft, and I feel it a lot. And some people maybe don't notice it, but it's like a soft. Don't know how we call that, soft gland or something like that. Um, this for me is pretty. I don't know if you already heard
Sure.
this or not.
No, I haven't. I was actually going to ask you to dig in. So, I'm trying to think. Like, is it in the shaft of the penis, or is it in the head of the penis where you notice it's, it's not as erect or as hard as it normally is?
It's inside, yeah. The visually you have the impression, yes, but when you have some shocks with it during the act, I feel that it's not hard. So yeah, it's soft inside. It's like inflated,
Okay.
but at the same time it's not. And what I can tell you is that I'm not the only one having this symptom. I think David Healy has talked about this, if I'm not wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I didn't notice it straight away because there's so much symptoms coming in, but I do now. So this leads to the other symptom. So I'm not finished
Sure.
yet. The other one is the premature ejaculation, or let's say rapid ejaculation. So this is classical, but this is still present. There are ways a bit to help maybe, but I can't say it's very satisfying. So this is not the worst one, but it's one of them. And one frustrating one
Well,
is the
let me, before we go on to the next one, let me just ask you a bit more about that.
yeah.
I probably talked to about maybe 12, 13 people with PSSD. Maybe
Mhm.
it's more. But I feel like the premature ejaculation, I've heard that maybe twice. And I think the rest of them have said that they've been, it's been incredibly difficult to ejaculate as well. And so it sounds like what happened with you is premature ejaculation is more of a problem is than being unable to reach orgasm. Is that true?
It's definitely true. I think it's a question of perspective also, because maybe some people in my body, when I had the long lasting effect, would maybe be frustrated because they have the impression they cannot finish. So I was
Mm-hmm.
taking ages and ages, but I knew eventually it would come. But maybe for some it's way too long. So I was fine with this, but now it's really the 360.
Yeah.
It's too fast. I mean, you have and I did a lot of work to try to fix this. We'll talk about it after maybe, but yeah, I noticed that some people develop premature ejaculation during the med, even though the med is usually given to last longer. I don't think there's any real logic to the symptoms we have, but there's symptoms that are more common than others, definitely.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So go on. Let's go through the remaining symptoms.
Yeah, pleasureless orgasm. This is also something that was new. I mean, and it's still the case 4 years later. Basically, when you have ejaculation, you don't have any pleasure. So it's like I'm doing the thing and like, and it's done. Like that's how it
Oh
is.
my God.
You don't have this build up
Yeah.
with all the sensation. Maybe I don't know, 30 seconds before. I don't know, 30, and you building up and you feeling the pleasure, and then when you achieve the thing, you've got this release and this pleasure. What I've got now is I have this sensation of release mechanically. I do not feel the pleasure. So yeah, it's a bit. I mean, there's nothing to explain.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awful. Yeah.
That,
Okay. Are those the 8? I wasn't counting.
no, there's two others that tend to
Yeah.
fluctuate. So I'm not quite sure. I mean, I do notice it sometimes no. So one is that it was burning me when I was finishing. So I had this sensation of burning. I wouldn't say it's electrical, but it was definitely not pleasant when I was finishing. So at at some point, like you don't have the pleasure, but not only you don't have the pleasure, but you have really something like hurting you or making you feel very uncomfortable. Um, Now it seems to be not the case, even though sometimes I'm like, this is weird. But I cannot say it's set in stone. I cannot say that. And regarding the last one, it's just the texture of the semen, which is really like water. This is fluctuating also, but during a few years it was literally really liquid. The color also transparent, liquid. Now it's not all the time the case, so it tends to fluctuate. I'm not sure why. I have no idea. This is something I noticed. This I cannot say it bothers me. It's just the global picture. When you take those 8 symptoms, it's difficult to attribute this to depression. It's not possible. I mean, if you have some, let's say, good faith and you're a bit rational and logical, there's something not going on out there, and it's not just the fact of, yeah, you're stressed, maybe you're not young anymore. You know, I'm almost 34 now, but I'm still not dead. I think it's fine.
Okay. How did your girlfriend react when she found out that you had developed PSSD?
So we're talking about the one in the Philippines, right? Yeah, often.
Yes.
So I think she did not understand the gravity of the situation, and at this time, the communication with her was not optimal, if I can say this like that. It did affect me also a lot because I was going through tough times. I mean, really tough times. I've been through a lot in my life, honestly, and this wasn't needed, and it was a pretty high level. So emotionally, it did impact me, and it didn't help, I guess. Um, she was pretty comprehensive, but yeah, she didn't want to talk about the subject, and I was trying to explain her that some things are not working and emotionally, and it wasn't the right time to talk about that. So it was really 3 difficult months.
And so you mentioned it kind of as, the girlfriend in the Philippines. Did that relationship end eventually?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it ended
Okay.
because of PSSD, even though I have no 100% guarantee, but I'm pretty sure it's not linked to this. From communication was lost, but I never had the impression she this topic was an issue. especially that it was temporary. I was over there temporary, but overall, it ended for other reasons. But
Okay.
I guess
And
it clearly didn't help, you know.
sure. And so with the girlfriend you have now, what was it like starting to date again, knowing that you had this problem? Actually, yeah, let me say that differently. What was it like dating with PSSD?
It's a bit like having to drive a plane, but you don't have the license. So you're gonna drive the plane, but it's not gonna be easy, you know. And eventually, people are gonna notice that you don't have the license. So, put in other words, when I went in a date app, the purpose was just to test. I wanted to see if I could tease girls and just feel something. I wasn't into going in a relationship or not. I was just seeing if I'm reacting to any words or any stimulation. I was trying to create the environment to access or feel some emotions, because if you don't do that, they will not come back magically. So I'm constantly forcing myself in my daily life to do things, even if I don't want to. I'm not motivated. I want to see people. I'm just like, I know I like that. Even if I don't like it, I'm gonna like it. Like I'm gonna do it 1,000 times, and it's frustrating, obviously, and brings a lot of irritation. But to come back to your question, I did eventually see her in another country the first time after 6 months talking, and I think the first month did help me a lot. I mean, I was pretty cash on the PSSD issue. I have no issues talking about this to anybody who's willing to listen and let's say, open-minded and non-judgmental, because I'm not going to lose energy for nothing either. But I think girls are very
Well,
comprehensive.
let me ask you about that because I think that's interesting. Are you saying that you weren't afraid to talk to a potential partner about PSSD? Like it wasn't something that made you nervous?
Like, it's something that it's not a pleasure to do it, because this is nonsense.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I shouldn't even be talking about this topic. It's like, doesn't make sense. But I'm not nervous because I cannot even feel like this kind of emotion. So I'm very no filter. When I say no filter, I mean I have this experience from my previous life and education, work, and common sense. So I know how to react in society. I know what to say. But now, if something is irritating me, or I need to tell something, I don't have anxiety. I don't have this heart pumping. I'm just like saying things, and I noticed that girls are pretty comprehensive. I would say more than boys in general matter. And I can't say it was a pleasure, but I had to inform her, because I'm not gonna go and see her and her imagining stuff when, like, I'm not gonna talk when I cannot act, you know?
And so let me ask this. It sounds like it wasn't actually as frightening to do it because you were still suffering from a lot of blunting and there was less anxiety and fear going on. Is that a fair assessment?
It's a fair assessment, but
Yeah.
it's also a matter of respect, and
Yeah.
respecting the other
Of
person,
course.
and,
Yes.
you
Yeah.
know, informed
Yeah.
consent for her. What's waiting for you? You bought this product? What's in the product? What you gonna get? You need to be clear. So she's it was fine for her, and I think in some way it can also, it's not going to do miracles, but it can maybe, if you have any pressure, it can maybe help you or liberate you a bit. I can't say it's my case,
Yes.
but having things that are set and clear, she can only have she will only be surprised in a positive way, and not the contrary.
Okay. I'm gonna pivot and ask you about something else now. Has the cognitive dysfunction from the PSSD impacted your ability to work and earn money?
So before that, I was already impacted physically. So I wasn't working between 2011 and 2021.
Mm-hmm.
So I was already impacted massively. Now, cognitively, the first year I was feeling that I had some issues with concentration. Um, and how we could say that, not jet lag, but a bit brain fog maybe. Overall, I was lucky to not have too much damage, and I also recently did another water fast. We will go on after, but I think this, I believe, doesn't do miracles, but I believe helps me. Yeah, not sure it answers your question.
No, it does. Yeah. How understanding have your well, let me ask you this. How has your family responded to you having PSSD when you've shared the news about this with them?
Uh, I think they just don't realize. I mean, you can say to anybody, I have PSSD, like they have no idea what it is. So usually they saw I was in complete distress, I was feeling bad. Like I'm very solid. I don't have any fear to say that I'm very solid mentally. And seeing that it's impacted me that much was a bit preoccupating for them, especially I was in another country at the time. Um, you have all the family, I mean, the surroundings, the friends, and telling them that, yeah, he stopped antidepressants, he needs to get back on them. And this is so, like, so basic way of thinking. Like, it's like they're at this level and me just over there. Like, it's much more complex than this. And I mean, I think they believe me. They do believe me. They just cannot do anything, and they are supporting me, but we don't talk about it. I rarely
Mm-hmm.
talk about this. I never complain. I don't talk. Like sometimes I mention it, but I think they tend to forget because they also have their life, and I'm somehow managing my life, and I I mean, since a kid, I've always have a knack for hiding my pain and troubles. This is, I think, due to my personality, but also the fact that when I was playing tennis, I was focused on not giving any kind of negative emotions to the opponent. And if you have a look at my Instagram right now, like people literally think I'm living my best life. I'm not saying it's not the case, but there's obviously a lot of things that are impacted me physically and this PSSD. So I'm very good at hiding, which is very good because enables me to be in society and to be accepted as normal. The one thing or the negative side is that people do not understand why you feel bad or if you feel bad because I'm always talking with people when I'm outside the house, very social. I never complain. But when I'm in house with my parents or my girlfriend, they get fully impacted, like hard.
Yeah. Okay. Looking back on the last 4 years of dealing with this, what is the biggest way that PSSD has impacted your life?
It's a tough question, but I've been lucky to be able to find a job with my cousin. So we fully decentralized and digitalized. And in some sense, I've been very lucky because I'm going very well financially, and I have this flexibility of traveling, of managing my time, which is a big plus. But what I feel right now is that I literally have everything. And maybe you know what I'm gonna say, but I really feel like I have nothing. And that's how I feel. Like, I'm not saying money and material things and having a relationship is what makes you happy, but like, I have a home, I'm financially good, I have a nice car, I travel a lot, I go in good hotels. Like, I've got a girlfriend who is really an amazing person, even though it's a challenge for me. We can talk about this after. But overall, there's this sense of emptiness that is not due to depression or the fact that I'm not doing anything of my day, but there's something not working, and yeah, it's a challenge every day. Every day is a challenge.
In the last 4 years, have you noticed any improvement in your PSSD symptoms?
It's not easy to answer. I feel I don't have improvements now. The thing is that you eventually get used to the sensation of having PSSD. So the reaction or the attitude I have towards PSSD has a bit changed. It's still very frustrating and challenging, and some periods or days are very complicated, but I think the initial shock is gone, and it's still difficult, but I seem to manage it, even though I think I will never, um, yeah, I will never maybe be happy while this issue is still here, especially on the emotion side, um, more than sexual.
So that makes sense to me. So correct me if I'm wrong, but what it sounds like is physically you still feel the same, and I guess the psychological aspects, the psychological symptoms, I'll say instead, still feel the same, but the fear that you have about what has happened to you has lessened, I guess, because you're more used to it. Maybe the impact it's had on your life has lessened because you've gotten used to living with it. Is that a fair way to describe, what the quote unquote improvement has been?
It's a fair way, which is, I don't know if we can call that improvement, but there's
Yeah.
there's a process that has been done, and it leads me to where I am right now. Um, I keep, I mean, it's not easy to have a problem and not finding a solution. I mean, before PTSD, I have another solution that I cannot, another issue that I cannot solve, which is my physical pain. I'm still fighting 20 years after. It's still taking me a lot of research and time and appointments, and I'm focusing a lot of energy and time on this. And now I also have the PSSD issue, which I know I will not find a solution because I'm not a researcher, but it's a lot to deal with, and maybe I'm so used to having battles and challenges that makes it easier. I don't know.
I know suicide has been a big issue in the PSSD community. People
Mm,
go missing, and we just wonder what's happened to them.
yeah, yeah.
Have you had your own struggles, wondering about whether life is worth living, thinking about suicide as you've been going through all of this?
Yeah, definitely. Which is which means a lot because I mean, there's nobody who wants to think about that, but at some point it was a serious option. At least imagining and thinking about it, because first year was really tough, and that's when also I was talking to a guy called Dylan. He did ibogaine therapy in Mexico, and I was talking about him with him about PSSD because he had the exact same issue as me, bluntness, anhedonia, sexual issues. And I can't say I was such in a bad state that I needed to do something. And it's not easy because there's clearly this benefit versus risk choice to do that is very tough. In this community, you can do nothing for PSSD and maybe you will get better, or maybe never. And at the same time, you want to be active and find a solution. So you're going to take a supplement, or maybe you're going to do this therapy or this psychedelic, and it can help you, but chances are higher that they will eventually make you crash. So you're stuck in this decision that not making decision is maybe a good one, but taking the decision to do something is maybe a bad one. I don't know if you understand my point.
I understand it very well because I deal with it not just with PSSD, but with another condition called protracted withdrawal, which is severe neurological devastation from rapid antidepressant or benzo removal, and you can't really do anything about it. I mean, the people wait several years to recover, but they're frequently stuck in a position where they will not accept what's happened to them because it is so uncomfortable and so horrid that they're often saying, should I take this supplement? Should I get stem cells? Should I do this treatment? And it's the same thing, that there's nothing really that works, but because of the desperation of being in so much distress, people have to try something because they need to feel proactive in their recovery. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Everybody's asking on the forums, on PSSD networks, what should I do? What should I do? And the answer is simple. Nobody can tell you. Like it's like playing lotto, so the lottery. So it maybe help him, but it crushed 10 people. It will maybe help you, maybe not. Like it's sad to see this. Every couple of days, I see new members coming into the forum, just appear in my feed. Like I'm starting from this. What can I do? Will it go away? And I feel sad for those people because they just enter in a new chapter of their life that will maybe mark them forever, and maybe they even have no idea where they are right now. But nobody can help them. That's the true. I mean, that's the truth into 2024.
Yeah. Let me ask a follow-up question on the suicide.
Mm.
How did you decide that this was something that you were going to live through rather than end your life over?
Mm-hmm. Is there a rational response to this? I don't know. I think it's more my attitude and personality. Like I hate giving up, and thinking that I could give my life is an option, but thinking that maybe 5 years later I would be fine. And knowing this, like, I mean, what keeps me alive right now, it's the hope and the fact that I don't know what's going on. If you're telling me right now that maybe in 60 years I'm going to remain the same, I'm not quite sure what's going to happen, but this uncertainty and the fact of having faith or hope, that's what keeps you alive. So I'm here at 4 years and a half. And I think the first year I would have never thought about achieving this performance, if you can say this. And I still think that despite all these horrible issues we have, or I have, I still have a lot of positive in my life, even though I cannot access those emotions and really, really realize because it's numbed and it seems normal, but mechanically, analytically, and rationally, I know that I'm lucky, but I know that a lot of things are not going on. But I have a girlfriend who's here. She's amazing. She's supportive. I think she lives the condition better than me, which is ironic, but it's reality. And I tell my parents, I try to take care of myself, even if sometimes I don't want to. I try to accomplish the same things and create the environment for some healing to happen if it's willing to happen. Take care of myself, do a job, have some money, travel, even though like it doesn't do me anything when I see something really nice. I'm like, I knew I wanted to do this before in my past life. I'm going to do it eagerly. If I don't react, I don't react, but I did this, check, and I'm still trying to live life. So I cannot do more. I mean, I cannot invent emotions. I cannot cry if someone dies, and I cannot cry. What can I do? Like, cannot invent this. It's shameful. Like, it's bad and sad, but I cannot do anything more. If I could, I wouldn't be there talking with you.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. We have time for one more question before we have to wrap, but I think it's actually an incredibly important one. You're here 4.5 years later. If you could go back in time, well, actually, maybe not go back in time, what would you say to someone who is just learning about this, that they've just withdrawn, they've just discovered PSSD, they've just developed the symptoms, and they're facing their journey dealing with this? How would you advise them to cope with this condition and stay alive?
So first of all, I don't think I'm in position to advise anyone, but I mean, it's important for the person to not spend the whole day on forums and reading literature and all that stuff, because like everybody has done it and you will not find any solutions. Focus on itself, and I mean it's just, there's no perfect advice. I mean, you gotta let time a bit, at least past 1 year, wait and focus on yourself and give your body the opportunity to do something. But again, it may not work. I'm trying to be rational, like putting emotions aside, which is easy, but really rational. Like there's nothing we can say or do, but it's important to be supportive and say that you tried this, what was the result, and maybe there's some positive stories, maybe not, but at the end of the day, we're all different, and what works for you will not work for me, and maybe you get better, maybe not, maybe you don't have PSSD, maybe you don't. I would say, first of all, to do some elimination, so a few exams to really be sure that it's maybe not PSSD. I mean, it can be blood test, it can be doing a pudendal electromyography, it can be doing pelvic floor therapy. You can do an MRI of what was that again? I had this something here, lumbar spine and sacroiliac MRI, just to eliminate things. Can see a urologist. This is basic, but at least you covered with this, and then eventually, yeah, you have PSSD, but it's good to try a few things and eliminate.
Got one more question.
Sure, no worries.
Now that you've developed PSSD and it's clearly had a substantial impact on your life, what would you say to the doctors that prescribed you the antidepressants without warning you of this risk?
It's a hot topic. Should I blame them? I would say yes and no. I mean, those doctors go to school, universities, they are trained in a certain way, they have procedures to follow. They basically do what they teach to. So one would say that the PSSD rates are so rare that it's not worth mentioning it, because maybe the person will not have the proper treatment. I wouldn't agree with this, even though we don't have a clear data right now. I think the problem is more and more common at some extent. I personally, the first psychiatrist I saw, the second one I saw, who prescribed me these meds. I deeply think she did what was the best for me. Now, she didn't warn me about this effect, clearly. She was irresponsible. I don't know. I know that the EMA has done some changing in the labels, and I think Health Canada, I'm not sure if they applied it, but they said they're going to do it. FDA, I don't know. But I think they're just trying to do, in my case, the best for me. But to the psychiatrist I have right now, it's a third one, but let's say the second real psychiatrist I'm seeing, she is, I think she's slowly understanding that the PSSD theory I have is maybe correct, because initially I don't think she was really in line with this, and she does understand the fact that I don't take any meds. She doesn't bother me with that, but she's just telling me honestly that's the only thing she knows. It's like prescribing meds. So if I don't want to take any meds, it's fine. But she's like, how can I help you? Like, what's the point of seeing you each 2 weeks or each month? Because like I don't know what to do. And I prefer hearing this, which is really honest answer and rational and sad, but it's reality. She cannot help. I'm not waiting for any help from her. So
Perfect. Well, that was great. We're at time for today. I just want to say thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story. As a second, as a non-native English speaker, I can tell you that you were great. Didn't miss a beat, and you came across very clear. And I think a lot of people are going to get tremendous value from what you've shared. So thank you again.
thank you. I appreciate your words regarding the English. And to be honest, there's a lot of other things that we haven't discussed, but we 1 hour 22, so eventually we have to wrap. And yeah, anyone can reach me in comments if needed, and I will not do miracles, but at least we're here talking about the subject, and it's very good, and I'm very glad that you're doing this also. So thanks a lot for this, for the community and all the people suffering from this who don't even know they're suffering from this.